Yeah, is Dr. Felix there?
Yes, I'm very much here.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. I'll just give me a couple of minutes. I'll just
Okay,
start the program. So yeah.
sure.
Dr. Felix, can you just very quickly give me access to your site that you have shared with me? I'm not able to log in.
You don't have to log in. It's just a site, you know. You can directly click and
It's not allowing me to, it says you need permission. Anyways,
strange.
I'll just type in and check. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it still says that, I need permission privileges.
Could you please try with your phone? I don't know why it is a
I,
problem.
I, I
It's a
tried both with my mobile phone as well as on the laptop.
laptop.
So
Strange.
yeah, maybe I'll log in. Yeah. Yes, I'm just trying the other way around. So let me check.
Oh, by the way, I have just sent a WhatsApp to you,
Okay.
an introductory paragraph. You can
Yeah,
just read
yeah,
out.
yeah. That
That should be
that
fine.
should do. Yeah, that should do, doctor. Yeah, that should do. Okay. I'm sorry for this couple of minutes delay, but yet I'm happy to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Felix Bast. Dr. Felix is an associate professor and is a science writer based at Central University of Punjab, Bathinda, and he was uh, born as Srijit Vadake Madam Nambisan. If I'm sorry if at all I have pronounced it wrong, Dr. Felix, in Payanur, Kerala, India, in a Brahmin family, he adopted Felix Bast as a caste and religion neutral name after being inspired from French Enlightenment philosopher Voltaire in 2003. A BSc gold medalist, he was educated at University of Madras, Guindy campus, and IIT Bombay. After earning PhD from MEXT Japan as a Japanese government scholar, he has been serving Government of India since 2010. Amongst many discoveries that his team at CU Punjab has made include 3 new species of marine microalgae. Dr. Bast is a known science communicator in India through his writings. outreach talk, and YouTube videos fostering critical thinking and scientific skepticism. Dr. Bast served as an elected National Core Committee member representing biology and medicine at Indian National Young Academy of Sciences in 2019-20. He is also member of National COVID-19 Task Force by INSA, INSA, and Indian Scientists Response to COVID-19. Dr. Bast is also involved with Swayam, a flagship online education program of MHRD Government of India as a course coordinator. And in addition, is an avid cyclist, a runner, frequent blood donor, and an advocate of zero waste and low carbon footprint life cycle. We are indeed very proud to have you with us, Dr. Felix. On behalf of the UGC-HRDC Osmania University, on behalf of Osmania University, on behalf of all the participants who are from the government degree colleges of Telangana, I personally feel very proud to welcome you to this particular, FIP program, and we welcome you to present your talk. And Dr. Felix is, he said that he's going to talk about cognitive biases in scientific research, and he also yesterday took input from me to, find out and align his talk if at all it is needed. Thank you very much, Dr. Felix, for your continued interest and support.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Dr. Srinivasalu. I also thank Dr. Venkateshwarulu and Professor Sri Nagesh. He's the director of this, this particular program, and I'm really privileged to be here to spend next 1 hour with you all. And in case you have any doubt, please note down, and also the points that I'm telling, though it is being recorded, I suggest all of you to please note down some of the comments or suggestions that you would like to make on a piece of paper or a notebook, so that we can have an extended discussion at the end. And Andhra Pradesh and Telangana remains, one of my favorite places. I've been extensively traveled, and Dr. Srinivasalu, in his introduction, said that I discovered algae. Yes, I discovered one of the algae I discovered is actually from Andhra Pradesh, the coastal Andhra Pradesh. And yes, Andhra Pradesh is an amazing place, and Pesarattu, Andhra cuisine, especially Pesarattu, is one of my really favorite. I actually cook quite often. Now, coming to my today's presentation, allow me to share my screen to you all, so that I can share my presentation. Well, I hope my screen is visible. Could someone please confirm?
Yeah, it is visible, sir. It is visible.
Perfect. So in case, because I'm using a metered internet connection, and I'm also living in a township in rural Punjab, I might get my internet connection might get break. So I request Dr. Srinivasalu to please give me a call in case the connection breaks, so that I can try my alternative connection. So the title here is Cognitive Biases in Scientific Research. The cognitive bias or the critical thinking is one of my favorite topics, and I keep on featuring many of the videos on this topic with my scientific thinking themed videos through my YouTube channel. And yes, I'm really privileged to be part of it. I'm from Central University of Punjab, which is an emerging university, which is ranked as #1 in newly established Central Universities. And we are based in Bathinda, a small town in rural Punjab. So let me start with the presentation with a very famous quote by Martin Luther. You are not only responsible for what you say, but also for what you do not say. If you hide the truth and try to convince others about your fabricated lies, you're responsible for that too. So this is a very important quote, and it's a binding quote for all of us. We are all researchers in one way or another, and also as a teacher. We are all faculties in college or university or whatever you say. So we are responsible for what you do not say. That is also very important. So there, of course, there are kind of lies, the three kinds of lies, perhaps, lies, damn lies, and statistics. That's actually an aphorism. But according to Socrates, the three kinds of lies are: one is called commission, which is plain out lies or fake news, which is very common these days through WhatsApp and Facebook. Now, there is the second kind of lie is really important, and third, of course, the second and third is really important, but not many people are really aware of it. Lies of omission, like Martin Luther famously said, omit the crucial info from the narrative to give an alternative narrative. This is really common in scientific methodology. In the last talk, I saw that one lady was asking about, in chemistry, what are the sampling techniques? So all these are actually happens when you actually analyze the sample, the data from the chemistry experiment. The researchers have got this cognitive bias or inherent subconscious mentality to omit out the crucial info to present an alternative narrative that actually emphasize on your alternative hypothesis. You want to prove that your null hypothesis is wrong while alternative hypothesis is right. So that's why the lies of omission is really important for discussions pertaining to scientific research. And now coming to the lies of influence, that is also very important and very subconsciously hardwired into most of our mentality. It creates the false or misleading narrative. So of course, conspiracy theories or glorification of our past, all these propagandist things are called lies of influence. Friends, I actually spent 3 months in Germany last year, and I was in a Max Planck Institute, and I went to a pub nearby, and I was talking to some local Germans, so I'm so shocked to see that some of the Germans, the so-called white supremacists, plainly lie that Holocaust is completely fabricated myth. Do you know what Holocaust is? The Jews, they have been doing the genocide, genocide of the Jews done by the Christians, right? By Nazi in Hitler's regime. And many people now believe that the Holocaust is a lie. That is called historical revisionism. So it's not merely for the sciences. These lies are everywhere in this alternative narrative. This is my article published in the Hindu. Lies versus truth, the choice is ours. So you can just Google my name, Felix Bast, and just click on the first link that will go to my website, and you can read all my articles over there. So coming to today's talk on the critical thinking, or rather, the cognitive biases, critical thinking deals with the objective analysis of facts to form the judgment. Now, it's very important to distinguish facts from the lies. That's why I introduce you to the lies at first. So how do you objectively analyze facts? See, look at the terms. So all these terms are weighted terms. It's not subjective analysis, it's objective analysis. Objectivity is very important, not neutrality, but objectivity. That's what the science is all about, So objectivism and neutrality, argument to moderation, all these concepts I have already covered in many of my YouTube videos. So please go and check it out, some of these videos. We don't have much time to cover the objectivism in philosophy today. Things that skew our judgment include emotion, cognitive biases, logical fallacies, mental heuristics, and psychological effects. All these are really important. And emotion, as you know, the emotional being, we all have got two kinds of centers in our brain, right? Amygdala and those old centers are actually our reptilian ancestry. Those are emotional, fight or flight response. Many of our decisions, even as a scientist we do, are influenced by these old centers. That is really wrong. We really have to put more attention to the rational center, which is actually higher brain, or cerebrum, right? So those centers, we have to actually put more fact into it, but these are not actually beyond our control, actually, these are subconscious effect. Now, today's main topic is on cognitive biases, plus I will also cover some of the logical fallacies and mental heuristics and psychological effects. Yeah, I actually walk every day, and 3 days back, I was walking through my colony here in Punjab in Bathinda. This is a pic I spotted, and I posted in my Facebook as well. Look at this. According to my imagination, this is Niagara Falls. Doesn't it look like a Niagara Falls? Beautiful water is flowing down. You see that? Isn't it? It's a golden Niagara Falls. Even from here, it's falling down. This is my own imagination of the reality, my own interpretation of the data This is what is happening in sciences. We look at the data and we try to, interpret based on our own convenience or our own narrative, fabricated narrative, whatever the narrative that I would like to have. So of course, this is appreciable in arts. Of course, the photography is in arts. And if I title this as Niagara Falls, it is appreciable in arts. But of course, when it comes to sciences, such such clustering is not appreciable. So of course, logical fallacies or cognitive biases are more or less like optical illusions. So if I ask you A and B, do you see the two things? It's like a chessboard, isn't it? Now coming to the A and B, A looks what? Black, while B looks white, isn't it? Or rather gray and white. But friends, it is an optical illusion. If you join these two together, you can see the difference. So I'm just going back. Look here, A and B are very different in this picture because of this illusory shadow. Now, if I join it, it's exactly same. Nothing has been changed. I'm going back and now look at that joining. This is what exactly happening with our many of the decisions that we make in our life, even for politics, what party to vote for, or even while watching the advertisement in the TV. All these are the biases that we actually go with. So pareidolia is really a famous bias that we all undergo. So that is what the picture I took about the Niagara Falls in the cloud. This is what you call the pareidolia, very famous. Human brain is very good at seeing the patterns, while not so good at seeing or recognizing the random scatter. So I see that in this RUSA training, research methodology, I think statistics is one of your key point. In statistics, there is a concept called outlier. So we tend to detect outlier as an outlier, right? So okay, if I give you a random data, then you can just do a scatter plot and you can randomly pick, okay, this value looks like an outlier, let me pick it out. That is wrong, friends. For outlier, you have to do statistical tests like grubs or route method. I teach statistics also in UGC-SWAYAM. Dr. Srinivasulu, in his introductions, briefly stated about SWAYAM. I have a course there, biostatistics and mathematical biology. Please advise your, suggest your students to take up that course. It's actually a 3-credit course, and of course, you can claim that as part of the existing program pan-India. It is UGC credit transfer mechanism is there. So pareidolia, the term pareidolia is tendency for incorrect perception of a stimulus as an object, pattern, or meaning known to the observer, such as seeing shapes in the clouds, seeing faces in inanimate objects or abstract patterns, or hearing hidden messages in music. And we tend to have this kind of hindsight bias also. If we see that the objects, or if we see the outcome, we tend to say, oh, well, I know that. I knew that this is going to happen. If you look at the India-Pakistan cricket match, and if India wins, then you always say, oh, well, I already knew that India is going to win from the very beginning, the first over. That is called hindsight bias. All these psychological cognitive biases are highly interrelated, friends. Apophenia is a term that used to say tendency or mistake of to mistakenly perceive connections and meaning between unrelated things. So meaning, we tend to put deep meaning of our life. What is the meaning of your life? Well, there is a purpose, so there is actually a destiny. So that kind of definitions have already been criticized by Voltaire. Again, Srinivas introduced me as someone who changed my name because of the influence with the Voltaire. I suggest all of you to read his very small novelette or novella called Candide. Candide by Voltaire is a direct critique of this positive thinking and hopelessly optimistic, thinking that we are living in a best possible world. So that is what the meaning. So this is basically in search of the deep meaning of our life. So Man's Search of Meaning, you might have read that very famous book by Viktor Frankl, so that all about the meaning. So, we are actually looking at the pattern and we tend to say that, okay, the pattern corresponds to some alternative narration. For example, look at this, it's just a screw, right? But look, I can see a face here. Of course, you can also see it. You can also see an angry face here. These are purely just a random scatter. It is not really when the architect designed it, that's such a way to give an angry face. No, it just happened that way. And because this photo is cropped like this, you're seeing a face. Had the photo been big, larger, you will never see this face. Or look at this. This is our moon. Can you see a shape in the moon that is called a man with a nose here, twice, and lips? Man on the moon is a very famous example of pareidolia that we tend to see that, and if you simply rotate the moon, it all depends on which phase of moon you're looking. Now it's no more a moon, but it's it's actually a rabbit, 2 ears. You see a rabbit here, so rabbit moon. It has been objective abstract for a countless number of poets and writers, so pareidolia is not just for the of course moon, but also for the constellations. This is a sarcastic cartoon by XKCD. It's a very fantastic site. I love this XKCD. I suggest you check out their website. It has got lots of this kind of thing. All kinds of constellations are a human imagination, pareidolia. And if you join different kinds of the constellations, you will get a different kinds of constellation, right? It's like Virbi, Bras, Scorpello, Leo and Scorpion and Vibrio. So all these things you are actually getting together to get a new one. So all these depends upon the way you look at it and you put the pattern. So coming to the cognitive biases. Cognitive bias is an erroneous evaluation or reasoning or remembering or other cognitive processes, often occurring as a result of holding on to one's preconceived notions, emotions, preferences, and beliefs, regardless of the information in contrary. So even if you are provided with lots of disinformation, you tend to believe that this is true, because I have some preconceived notion. One good example could be, if you're a vegetarian, you think that, okay, vegetarianism is really good because, it's more ethical choice and it's good for health, and a lot of things you can say. And even if the other party is giving you lots of information contrary, for example, you're randomly coming across a nice essay, and the essay says that human beings are evolutionarily non-vegetarians. And if you are a vegetarian, you will have a serious lack of adequate protein in your diet. You tend to overlook it and you won't read that essay because of this cognitive bias called confirmation bias. So confirmation bias is a very famous example of a cognitive bias. So, or the other way around, if you're a non-vegetarian, I'm providing an essay saying that why non-vegetarianism is bad for the environment, for the earth, why vegetarianism is more environmental choice, or ethical choice, and you tend to overlook it. You won't even read it. So the two ways of presenting the same data, but you won't have so basically we are all living in filter bubble, and the political and religious polarization is actually going too much these days because of the preponderance of social media. And if you're given an alternative point of view, you simply reject it. You really don't have any time to read what is actually going in the other side of the story, other side of your bubble, so this is actually the problem. So you really need arm yourself with the different kind of cognitive biases and how to actually protect yourself from these cognitive biases. Really important. So simply put, cognitive biases are psychological tendencies that cause the human brain to draw incorrect conclusions. So we are actually drawing the incorrect conclusion from the psychological tendencies. So incorrect conclusion is also applicable to the scientific research. That's the point of today's discussion, right? Conclusion from the data. So the way that we conveniently interpret the data. For example, one of the very common cognitive bias across the world is cherry picking. Scientists pick some of the data that actually goes well with the narrative that you would like to make, or alternative hypothesis. So confirmation bias is a tendency to interpret or recall or search for or favor a new piece of evidence or information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing belief or hypothesis. One example, I already told you, vegetarians prefer reading stories that favor vegetarianism. One story from taxonomy, this is my own field. Archaebacteriologist Carl Woese elevated to the rank Archaebacteria to the top domain. According to the Woose's 3-domain classification of the entire life on the earth, there are only 3 domains. One is called Eubacteria, which is normal bacteria, prokaryote. Another is Archaebacteria, that is because he is an archaebacteriologist. And the third is eukaryote. We take it for granted, Carl Woose's 3-domain classification, but it also suffers from the confirmation bias. Because why? Because he is an archaebacteriologist. And he really want to give more credit to the archaebacteria, to the top domain. Now, after Carl Woese died in 2001. Of course, right now the most prevalent classification scheme is by the Oxford zoologist Cavalier Smith. And of course, he was a protistologist and he did not agree with American Carl Woose's 3-domain system. He abolished the domain and instead he elevated his pet taxa protist to 2 kingdoms out of 6. So according to Cavalier Smith, the whole life on earth can be into 6 kingdoms. Out of 6 kingdoms, 2 kingdoms only belong to the protist. And what is so special about the protist? Because the protists are his pet taxa. He is a protistologist, and so this is what exactly the confirmation bias is all about. And if you look, you simply search for the dietary significance or nutritional importance of turmeric. You will find, I actually did a very interesting survey on the turmeric and nutritional assessment of turmeric. You will see 6,000 citations, different kinds of bioactive assessment. Out of 6,000 citations, 5,000 comes from India alone. 5,000 articles published from India on the medicinal importance of turmeric. And why so? Because turmeric is part of our own, the food. And that is also a kind of confirmation bias. We are more prone to our own preconceived notion that the turmeric is really healthy and really, really good for health. And that is why we want to prove it, that the turmeric is good for health, Give me 1 second, please. I just have to go out and come back. Yes. Return. Okay, sorry for the inconvenience, and let me share that screen once again. Yes, so the confirmation bias you were talking about, another very important bias is cherry picking. I hope I'm audible to you all, right? Am I?
Yeah, audible, sir.
Audible, fine. Cherry picking is selectively pick the piece of evidence or data that confirms our pre-existing belief or expectations. So it is very important in scientific methodology in science across the field. If you're a chemist or a physicist or a biologist, or all these fields are prone for cherry picking. We just pick some data that actually goes with our pre-existing belief, and then we hide the other piece of information. For example, during drug testing, a chemist deliberately chooses the subjects in which the drug worked and conceals subjects where the drug did not work to increase the statistical significance. So cherry picking is a form of a scientific misconduct, friends. So it's a bad science, and if you do the cherry picking, then you are actually liable to be prosecuted. It is actually illegitimate practice. It's a scientific misconduct, taking out some of this. So it is the same thing as the pseudoscience advocates proclaim to be something called anecdotal evidence, which they will never say it's anecdotal. For example, an alternative medicine guy, he's saying that you're hearing that, oh, well, I know there is one guy in Himalayas, and he, one of the cancer patient got cured because of his treatment. So you might wonder, wow, he cured a cancer treatment, but you fail to understand that many cancers, disappear without any, treatment interventions. So that is a cherry picking, and the person, whoever is actually arguing in favor of that holy man, will, he will not say that the time that his treatment did not work, maybe one time it's just happened to work out of 100, or pray. You pray for many days, then something will happen, right? In many, even for thousands of years, many people were praying for, farmers were praying for the rain to come. So sometime rain comes, sometime rain doesn't come, but then you interpret that, okay, well, whenever I prayed, the rain came. You cherry pick your data to say that the prayer is effective. That is exactly what the cherry picking is all about. Another very important bias is called positive results bias. Authors are more likely to submit publications, are more likely to accept positive results rather than the negative results. So, the publication is now going to be covered by Biju, I guess, and he will be saying more about predatory publications later, I think the last day. But, this is a very important cognitive bias prevalent in publications. So if you send your negative results to a journal, chances are high that they will not accept it, and because they will say, oh, well, there is nothing interesting about this study. For example, if you submit a paper that turmeric versus coronavirus, and you conclude after lots of study, you conclude turmeric is not effective against nCoV-2, that is SARS and CoV-2, the novel coronavirus. And then the journal, the editor will say, well, that is nothing interesting. We are looking for the treatment of COVID-19. So you're saying that the turmeric doesn't work, so we will not publish it. So that is exactly the problem, is that the positive research bias. So a lot of positive thing doesn't mean that, so that means the prevalence of publications with positive research doesn't mean the real prevalence of positive research. So really, in reality, positive research will be a very minor subfaction of the research with lots of negative research. That many people fail to understand it. Anthropocentrism is a very important cognitive bias, that the whole world is created for human being, and the purpose of the universe is for humanity. That is a bias. Not many people really appreciate that the anthropocentrism is a bias because of the hardwired human tendency to interpret, convenient interpretation, and also because of the cultural baggage that we all have. We all have been raised as a religious stalwarts, and the message conveyed by religion is quite different from the message of the critical thinking or reason or science. Optimism bias is that overestimating likelihood of positive outcomes. We overestimate of the outcome. If the outcome is positive, we estimate that these are going to be really good. So that is called optimism bias. So hyperbolic discounting is prone for immediate gratification rather than delayed gratification. For example, if I offer you, I will give you 500 rupees, today, or if you can wait for 5 years, at the end of 5 years, I will give you 10,000 rupees. What will you take? So many people will say, okay, give me 500 rupees now. I don't want to wait for 10 years for your 10,000 rupees. So that is exactly hyperbolic discounting. Very common in science also, friends. People actually publish in crap journals, a predatory journal, because they just want an immediate gratification. They just want a promotion. They just want a reputation in their work thing. So that is why the hyperbolic discount is very common. Even for the teenagers, they indulge in smoking, indulge in alcohol, sex, or because of this hyperbolic discount, because they just want an immediate happiness rather than delayed gratification. Status quo bias is preference for the current state of affairs. That means that I don't want to change because the way it is, chalta hai in Hindi they call chalta hai attitude. Yeah, I mean, it just goes like that. So it should be fine. That kind of attitude. People are not wearing mask. In my university, nobody wears mask. In my locality, nobody wears mask. So why should I wear mask? That mentality is called status quo bias. It's against a cognitive bias. Negativity bias is negative news have more impact on us than the positive news. That is the reason why the media is full of negative thing, because negative news sell very nicely. The Riya Chakraborty, you might know, all these are actually selling so much super than the positive news, because people are paying a lot of attention on the negative news on us than the positive news. So that is also negativity bias is also common in research methodology. Of course, there are so many biases. I really don't have much of my time, but I'm just I'm sharing with you a very interesting, a handout, which I'm going to share to Dr. Srinivasulu. I hope he will share to your WhatsApp group or email group, so you can have a look all these social biases. So if you look at that, there are 19 well-known social biases, of which just world phenomenon is one. It's a tendency for the people to believe that the world is just means good, and therefore people get what they deserve. This is a very important thing, especially it has got connotations on gender in workplace too. I have covered many of these topics in my YouTube channel, so please have a look. Dunning-Kruger bias is basically superiority bias. So basically, if you're a very smart person, you tend to say that, okay, I'm not really smart, I don't know really. But if you are not a smart person, you tend to say that, well, I know everything. That is called. So usually if you say that you know everything, then you are a stupid man or stupid woman. So that is exactly the Dunning-Kruger effect is all about. System justification effect of status quo bias, I just said. Herd instinct is very important. The common tendency to adopt the opinions and follow the behavior of the majority to feel safer, to avoid a conflict. Majority in India, I'm not sure is it really a majority, but the homeopathy. Many people think that homeopathy works, though it is a very well-known pseudoscience. And people in your community believe that homeopathy is good, so you cannot speak against homeopathy. That is a herd instinct. Another well-known conspiracy theory about COVID-19 is that it is actually it is actually man-made in a genetic engineering lab in China. Of course, a myth. It's a lie, plain lie. But many of your friends believe in that lie. So you tend to not to antagonize your friends, and you tend to go along with the masses. So that is called a herd mentality, or mass think, or group think. So this is also very well known in the sciences as well. Outgroup homogeneity bias means that outgroup, the other people are more homogeneous. We are really diverse. So in reality, we are a lot more homogeneous than the outgroup. So that bias is very well known. False memory is a form of misattribution wherein a memory is mistaken for the imagination. So it's not really a memory, but it's our imagination. Or the confusion of the true memories with the false memories. It's especially common if you write an autobiography, or if you put remnants of the childhood. Basically, whatever your memories of your childhoods are highly skewed. These are not real. So if you later in life, if you think about your childhood, okay, I used to like this, I used to like that, but those are just your imagination stories. Many of the story, many of the scientific research have repeatedly said that. Or hindsight bias is, I have already introduced the hindsight bias, filtering memory of the past events through present knowledge, so that those events look more predictable than actually were. Also known as I knew it all along effect. So hindsight bias is that I already have a clue what is going to happen. Obviously, nobody can predict what is going to happen in a complex system, you see. So hindsight bias is also very common in sciences, So now coming to the decision-making biases, are 42 decision-making biases. Irrational escalation is a famous one. That is tendency to make irrational decisions based only upon the rational decisions in past, or to justify actions already taken. So you have already taken some rational decisions in past. So that doesn't mean that whatever decisions you are taking in the future will also be rational. For example, in past, India has produced fantastic scholars, fantastic researchers. For example, Panini. Panini is basically, is an ancient Sanskrit linguist. Panini Sanskrit grammar is amazing. And because Panini is amazing, whatever we guys do right now is also great. That is irrational escalation, justification or glorification of past. Friends, it's wrong. Omission bias is another thing, tendency to indulge in harmful actions or worse or less moral or than equally harmful omissions or inactions. So I told you omission is a very well-known lie. So you omit the fact from your data to present a skewed fact is basically it's a fabrication of the truth. Whatever the data that you generate, you have to actually archive it. In Germany, for example, every notebook that you write, you have to write with a pen, not with a pencil, and everything have to be deposited in your supervisor's lab. You cannot simply take it. And now these days, if you ever submit a paper to Nature, I have submitted a paper to the Nature. I also have a paper in Nature India. So a paper in Nature will always demand where is your raw data. So if you're submitting a data to the Nature or Science, you have to put all your raw data in a site or a portal called labarchives.com. So labarchives.com, you have to put all your electropherogram, for example, if you work with DNA sequencing, or if you're working with the questionnaire survey, all your raw data, everything you have to put there. So that omission bias will not, people can actually look at that. The reviewers can spot if you're omitting or not. So deformation professionale, it is actually a French word that means it's a tendency to look at the things according to the conventions of one's own profession, forgetting any broader point of view. So that is the conventions of own profession. You should actually cross-read it across the profession. I'm actually a biologist, but I always read what is actually happening in the field of economics, for example, or psychology, arts, linguists. I even had a major project on linguistics. So Osmania University is very famous for me because I have read so many papers of Krishna Swami. Brihadishwara Krishna Swami is a very well-known linguist from Dravidian linguist from your university, and I'm really proud to have such a great scholarly linguist from the Osmania. So reading across the discipline is really important, but not many people actually do it. If you're a chemist, you tend to read only chemistry. What is happening in biology or physics? Oh, well, this is a different kind of method. And forget chemistry or physics. Well, at least they are science, right? A chemist reading papers on economics, come on, or psychology or linguist. Well, that is really important. The cross communication is really important. Impact bias is the tendency for the people to overestimate the length or intensity of the impact of the future feeling state. So, the impact bias, for example, diverse, I'll just introduce in a short while. Bias blind spot is the tendency not to compensate for one's own cognitive biases. So we know that we are making a cognitive bias, but we will not compensate. So that is called bias blind spot. Semmelweis reflex is the tendency to reject new evidence that contradicts an established paradigm. Established paradigm. Even if there is a new evidence, for example, you are getting a very good evidence that shows that turmeric doesn't work, or turmeric in lukewarm milk with honey and ginger and and jaggery is not an immune booster. If that is what your studies say, you will not say it out loud because of the Semmelweis reflex, because it contradicts an established paradigm. There is a very, very common cognitive bias in many of these developing countries. Not invented here is another very important myth. Please hold me 1 second, please. I'll just come, okay? I'm back. I'm sorry. All right. So not invented here is another very famous decision-making biases. The tendency to ignore a product or solution already exists because its source is seen as enemy or inferior. You know, for example, many people say that science is Western, and many people say that we have two kinds of science: Western science and Indian science. And if science is Indian, we say that it's more good. It's it is a supreme than the Western science. I know that many of my friends don't wear mask, and they say, well, mask is a Western invention. It's not an Indian invention. Rather, you should drink a lukewarm milk with a lemon and ginger and honey and jaggery and ghee to get the immune boosting effect. So that is that is exactly a bias here. So not invented here bias. So impact bias is tendency to overestimate the impacts of future events on our psychological state. For example, during the divorce, many people say it won't be same life but divorced. It's gonna be different life. So if you divorce at that time, you will think, okay, wow, oh my god, my life is going to be really suffering after divorce. But studies have shown that divorced couples or people who are divorced are much more happier than non-divorced and still in relationship, a toxic relationship, and both are suffering. And everything comes down to this very famous quote by Carl Sagan, American astronomer plus a popular science writer. He said that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. If you claim that your drug is an immune booster for COVID-19 or a cancer or AIDS, if you're making that claims, you need to provide extraordinary evidence. That exactly is the entire biostatistics is all about. The statistical hypothesis testing can be simply boiled down to this one sentence. Carl Sagan got it completely right. That is what the p-value is all about. P-value in sciences, or especially in biological sciences or biomedical sciences, is usually the cutoff p-value or threshold p-value is 0.05. 0.05 is corresponding to 95% confidence interval. So confidence interval of 95%. All these terms you can actually ask me, or ask your statistics. I heard that Dr. Srinivasulu was saying that there is a statistical special section, so you can clear up all your doubts in it. So in biology, this 0.05 is a threshold p-value, and is it same across the discipline? No. In physics, it's usually 0.005. And if you're looking at the particle physics or astronomy, for example, if you're saying that it's a new particle, graviton, for example, right? It's a new particle, or a neutrino. If you want to say that it's a new particle, it's something called 5 sigma. 5 sigma is the threshold p-value. That is 0.4 times 0. 0.00005. That is the threshold p-value. So the threshold p-value is basically for the extraordinary evidence. And you're making an extraordinary claim that I discovered a new particle. You need to have an extraordinary evidence to have that 5 sigma rule. If you are making an extraordinary claim that one kind of what is that stone, some kind of extract, plant extract in the Himalayas on the stone, something called the aphrodisiac, so that is basically a sexual stimulant. You're making that big claim. You need to provide the evidence also, right? So Shilajit, I'm saying about the Shilajit. So you're making a big claim, but without an evidence, how can you justify it? That is exactly as this Carl Sagan's method works. So post-purchase rationalization, you are rationalizing your purchase, that it's actually a good value. The same thing, after you do an experiment, you got some results, you spend a lot of money to generate a results. For example, you did a whole genome sequencing, and you got lots of results. Like you did a gardening and you got something, and you justify that whatever the data is, the data could be really crap data. It doesn't say anything, but then you rationalize it because you already invested the money on it. It is also related to sunk cost fallacy. For example, if you purchase amount to go to Hyderabad, very nice theater, Dolby Digital, IMAX theater, and you spend around 800 rupees to get a very nice seat in that theater to watch a very nice movie. And the movie is really bad, but chances are good that you're going to spend next 2.5 hours watching that movie, because you think that, oh well, I already spent 800 rupees for this movie ticket, so going stopping in between is not good. So that is exactly what is a post-purchase rationalization is all about. Or you go to a fancy restaurant, a 5-star restaurant, for a meal, so the meal is really bad, but still chances are high that you will eat it all because you spend it already. Framing is using an approach or description or the situation of the issue which is too narrow. Also, so you're basically framing the rest to correspond to your alternative hypothesis, the alternative fact. Or experimenters or expectation bias is basically the tendency of experimenters to believe, certify, and publish data that agree with their expectations or the outcomes of the experiment, and to disbelieve, disregard, downgrade the corresponding weightings for the data that appears to conflict with these expectations. One good example would be a friend of mine recently published a paper in a crab journal. It's a predatory journal, and he was saying that Tughliki Jamaat is actually central event that caused the entire COVID-19 spread in India. That is entirely wrong. He is simply disregarding all other religious activities that are also propel the spread of this COVID-19 in India. That is that is basically experimenters or expectation bias. Information bias is tendency to seek information even when it cannot be reflect in action. So it keeps on looking for the information bias. For example, if you say that, okay, Gomutra doesn't work for the COVID-19, then people will ask, okay, what's wrong in trying? Let me try for Gomutra against COVID-19. You spend 1 crore, 2 crore, 10 crore, then you will say, okay, let me work more and more. So 20 crore, 1,000 crore, 1 million crore, where do you stop it? So if you already have some information, you should stop and try something else rather than squandering the resources. So another important bias is confirmation bias, the central of entire cognitive biases, which I already informed you. Loss aversion bias is, or endowment effect is basically you're more prone to avoid the loss than to gain. So for example, if you have a nice pen with you, if you lose that pen, it will have more psychological impact on you than winning a better pen on a lottery. So you still, this is called loss aversion effect. Or bandwagon effect is basically tendency to do or believe in things because many other people do or believe the same, related to groupthink and herd behaviors. I already told you that many people in your locality, if they think that this one, whatever immune booster be, for example, bitter gourd, drinking bitter gourd is really good for treating diabetes. If people believe, your relatives believe that, and your friends believe, then you are also automatically believing in that myth. Bitter gourd is good. Well, we have got plenty of evidences that bitter gourd doesn't have any impact on type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes, but you tend to overlook those evidence. So you say that it works. That is what you call the bandwagon effect. Wishful thinking is the formation of beliefs and making of decisions according to what is pleasing or imagined instead by the appeal to the evidence or rationality. So, it's very, very common, the wishful thinking, because, if you make some decision that is pleasing to the government, you tend to make the decision because you want to please the government, whoever is in power, and why you want to please the government? You want to win more grants. That is exactly the wishful thinking is all about. Status quo bias is that you don't want to change. You just want to continue with whatever the life that you are taking, whatever kind of work you are doing. Even if you're publishing in crap journal, I don't want to change because that is the way I am. That is called status quo bias. Telescoping effect is basically, there are 35 probability of belief biases. Some of the important thing is telescoping bias. So effect that the recent events appear to have occurred more remotely, while remote events appear to have occurred more recently. Survivorship bias is very important. It is basically tendency to concentrate on the people or things that survived some process and ignoring those who did not survive. So a very interesting thing about survivorship bias is that people, you might know about COVID-19. Right now we are #2 in the whole world, but many media says that they don't write that we are #2. Instead we say that okay, we are actually recovering. Many people are recovering from COVID-19, so it's not a big deal. But they will not say that those people who recover from COVID-19 is going to have lifelong cardiac implications. Heart damage is lifelong. Even if you get a very mild COVID-19 and you recover from it, and you still have lifelong implications. So all these are examples of the survivorship bias. Selection bias is very common in chemistry or physics. I mean, when you do the experiments, distortion of the evidence or data that arise the way that the data is collected. Or Texas sharpshooter fallacy is really important. That is basically you shoot random and you simply draw some section and they say that, okay, look here, I did only here I shooted, and this is where the I have been aiming at this target. So that is exactly the Texas sharpshooter fallacy is all about. I'll just come to this fallacy in a short while. And then pareidolia, I already introduced when we began this talk. And overconfidence effect is also related to Dunning-Kruger effect, which I told you. Hawthorne effect is the tendency to perform or perceive differently when one knows that they are being observed. This is really common, in psychological effect. It's common in scientific studies also. If your subjects know that they are actually being observed, especially if you do some kind of like psychological assessment or a questionnaire survey, the Hawthorne effect is very common. So originally this effect was conducted in Bell Labs in the US, and they want to know the factory workers' productivity has an effect on the light intensity. So they simply increased the light intensity in the factory. Then they saw that the factory workers' productivity dramatically increased. Wow. Then they want to know that, okay, what will happen the opposite if the light intensity decrease. They did it, and then again factory workers productivity increased. So what is happening is nothing to do with the light intensity, but everything has to do with the simple fact that the factory workers are being aware that they are being looked at by a big brother. That is exactly what you call the Hawthorne effect. Gambler's fallacy is basically a tendency to think that the future probabilities are altered by the past events. For example, think of a cricket. In 1 over, one guy is actually Dhoni. MS Dhoni is he's actually playing a bat, and first ball is a sixer, second is a sixer, third is sixer, fourth is sixer, fifth is sixer. Then sixth you will say, okay, sixth is definitely is going to be sixer. But it's a fallacy. It's a gambler's fallacy. It has nothing to do. Past events have nothing to do with the future event. So dependent and independent events are really different in probability. So it's actually sometimes we think that independent events are dependent effect, events. So that is exactly the sole reason for the gambler's fallacy. Illusory correlation is belief that inaccurately suppose the relationship between certain type of action and effect. You might know that in statistics there is a principle called confounding. Correlation does not mean causation. That exactly is the illusory correlation is all about. So yeah, I can actually explain that for a long time, but really we don't have time. And availability heuristic is estimating that what is more likely is what is more available in the memory, which is biased towards vivid, unusual, or emotionally charged example. So if we are looking back in our own memory, we tend to focus only on the emotionally charged example, vivid or unusual things. So that is what availability heuristic is about. So it's very important in sciences to keep a notebook, write down your points and thoughts. You can never trust your memory. Belief bias is in effect where someone's evaluation of the logical strength of an argument is biased by the believability of the conclusion. So that is exactly what is happening if you mix your religion with sciences. Science is different, friends. Don't mix religion with the science. Ostrich effect is that ignoring an obvious negative situation. and you're concentrating only on the positive thing. Availability cascade is a self-reinforcing processes in which collective belief gains more and more plausibility, though it's increasing repetition in public discourse. So repeat something long enough and it will become true. That is what the Dietrich Monov already said about this. The Nazi propaganda, the Hitler strategy is that if you repeat a lie often and long enough, it will become a truth, because everybody will believe in that lie. Bitter gourd is really good for diabetes. That's a lie that is propagated by lots and lots of years. Now that everybody believes in that lie. Another lie could be, if you sleep with your head facing north, you're going to have a tremendous impact. You're going to suffer your health. That is also an example of availability cascade. Authority bias is a very important cognitive bias. Tendency to value an ambiguous stimulus, for example, art performance, according to an opinion of someone who is seen as authority on the topic. For example, you are an assistant professor, and if you say something but your supervisor or the boss is a professor in your university and professor says no, it is not right, then you will believe, okay, wow, professor is saying so, then it should be true. Nothing like that. And even there is actually a very famous Luc Montagnier, you might know. He's actually a conspiracy theorist, and he's a pseudoscience advocate. I have written about Luc Montagnier's COVID-19 conspiracy theory recently in Wire Science. You please have a look on that. So because Nobel Prize winner said so and so, it should be true. No, in science, friends, there is no authority. Even a school student can criticize a Nobel Prize winner provided he has got enough evidence, and he make cogent argument. So argumenting is really important in sciences. Stereotyping is basically expecting a member in a group to have certain characteristic without having actual information about that individual. Or sub-additivity effect is that, it is something to do with ecological fallacy. So tendency to judge the probability of the whole to be less than the probability of the parts. So the probability of the parts is, much higher probability than the probability of the whole. Or neglect of the prior base rates effect, tendency to neglect non-odds when re-evaluating the odds in light of the weak evidence. All these are things. So ecological fallacy is mistakenly using relationship among the groups to make inferences about the individual. So, looking at the groups and making things about the individual. For example, if you look in the map of India, left ruling state or left prevalent CPM states have got high literacy rates, right? Like in Kerala or wherever it is, or the states where left-wing parties rule long time, like for example, West Bengal, high literacy rate. Right ruling states, low literacy rate. So you're making a conclusion that leftists are more literate than rightists. No. This conclusion is not valid from these premises, So dialectics is art of making cogent argument. Every scientist should know the art of dialectics. It's a missing art in today's academia. Relationship among the groups are valid only for the groups, not for the individuals of the group. This is really important when we do ANOVA, analysis of variance between three or different groups. So how you dissect the groups is all important because of the prevalence of the ecological fallacy. Simpson's paradox is mistakenly using pooled data to conclude group significance. It's the opposite of the ecological fallacy. For example, efficacy of an anti-cancer drug candidate is tested against all types of cancer. That is a pooled data. And results for sure would be misleading because conclusions are mostly false negative, as there are several types of cancers and usually drugs are effective only against certain cancer subtypes. For example, paclitaxel could be effective only against breast cancer, not against lung cancer. But if you're testing it against all types of cancer and say that you declare that paclitaxel is not effective, then it's highly unlikely the effect. It is going to be a false negative. This is a very famous quote by Joseph Goebbels. He is basically a Holocaust victim. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. This is a strategy of the Nazi, Hitler's strategy. If you have ever read, of Kampf. So that is basically the biography of the Hitler. You will see that this was one of his major tactic. So one example from the advertisement is this. This one is stone crusher. This is basically it's a plant, and the plant can crush the stone. So this plant extract is really effective for kidney stone. That is wrong. Kidney stone itself is a misnomer. It's not really a stone. These are renal calculi. It is not at all a stone. It's just, if you're a chemist, you might know that it's just a sedimental particles, or a precipitate. It's not a stone. And stone crusher has got no effect on this kidney stone. And also there is a concept of inhibitory concentration, IC50. So without looking any of this clinical significance or statistical significance, and you are claiming the stone crusher can crush the kidney stone, it is a propaganda. It's not a truth. Or the Cochrane review is the most respected source of the systematic review, which is actually higher than the meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is basically analysis of the primary research data, and systematic review is basically analysis of the meta-analysis and give a concluding. So it is basically the gold standard of the evidence-based medicine now, the Cochrane reviews. And Momodia charantia for the type 2 diabetes mellitus is one of the famous meta-analysis of the Cochrane. If you read it carefully, you will see that this one is type 2 diabetes mellitus. There is insufficient evidence that effects of Momodia charantia for the type 2 diabetes mellitus. So basically, this bitter gourd extract does not work for the type 2 diabetes mellitus. So that is what it says. So another very important study is by ACS publication, the essential medicinal chemistry of the curcumin. This is a very, very well cited paper. It's a meta-analysis published in ACS publication, a very top journal in chemistry. And as you see that, the way that it is actually saying is that, curcumin, it says that, let me read out. Let me read from here. This manuscript reviews essential medicinal chemistry of curcumin and provides evidence that curcumin is unstable, reactive, non-bioavailable compound, and therefore a highly improbable lead. So we call it a solid gold or panacea, but it's basically a highly improbable lead. Even though there are 6,000 publications in peer-reviewed journals saying that curcumin is effective, bioactive, but now that the meta-analysis in ACS publication is clearly saying that it's totally fabricated data. 6,000 papers are wrong. It's a very serious matter. So false consensus bias or argumentum ad populum. Some of the other example would be eating fat makes you fat. I have written extensively. This is a very well-known myth. Eating fat doesn't make you fat. Eating, sugar, basically the carbohydrate makes you fat. For example, the white rice. Sugar causes diabetes, another well-known myth. Some of your family members have got diabetes, then you will give them tea or coffee without adding any table sugar. No. Diabetes is wrongly stated as sugar disease. It's not a sugar disease. Of course, blood sugar has nothing to do with the table sugar. Blood sugar is very complicated, Never have sugar when you have diabetes, another very common myth. It's nothing to do with the sugar having or diabetes. If you already have diabetes, there's nothing harm to have a little bit of sugar. But more important thing is that exercise and proper nutrition is very important to control the diabetes. Bitter gourd cures diabetes is another very well-known myth. All these are example of argumentum ad populum. Stone crusher, herbal supplement, crushes the kidney stone is a myth. You get cold when cold outside is a very well-known myth. No, you won't get cold when cold outside. When your son or daughter goes out during the rain, drizzle, and people say that, okay, the person might get cold. No, that is a very well-known pseudoscience, a myth. Herbal immune boosters boost your immunity. No, it's a very well-known myth. Boosting immunity, there is only one way, that is through vaccines. and nothing herbal immune booster doesn't actually and also boosting immunity is also not a good way. It is actually lead to, if something can boost your immunity, that leads to autoimmune disease. That's not good at all. I've written and I have also released videos on this topic. Sleeping with head towards north is bad. That's another big myth. And here in Punjab we have another myth. When a body part is reflected in a mirror while sleeping, that part will become ill. For example, if you have an almirah with a mirror, and if your leg is reflected in that mirror, then you are going to lose your leg. Come on, that is a pseudoscience. It's not a fact. Cognitive dissonance is that if some people hold a core belief that is very strong, and when presented with an evidence that works against that belief, new evidence cannot be accepted. It is going to create a feeling that extremely uncomfortable called cognitive dissonance. And because of it, it's so important to protect the core belief. They will rationalize, ignore, and even deny anything that does not fit with the core belief. So that is what the famous statement of the philosopher Franz Fanon. So cognitive dissonance is a very important phenomenon, affecting the entire sciences. Because your core belief. So basically in sciences, there is no belief, friends. No belief at all. This is a very famous Chinese quote. When a student is ready, the teacher appears. What does that mean? So if the student is ready to listen only, then the teacher, whatever teacher says, will go to the student. If the student is, there is another statement. When the student is really ready, the teacher disappears. That means really ready means that the student want to hear only what he think is right. Then whatever teacher says, he will not or she will not listen. That is exactly cognitive dissonance is all about. Or famous Stoic philosopher said that it's impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. If I know that, well, the curcumin is really good immune booster, and whatever the evidence you provide in contrary, I can never change my belief. That is what Epictetus said 2,000 years back. It's a Stoic philosopher. So I suggest the two very good books, You Are Not So Smart by David McRaney, and Mararin Banerjee and Anthony G. Greenwald's Blind Spot, Hidden Biases of Good People. These two are really highly recommended books. I have also written a very interesting cognitive biases in sciences. This is published in Science Reporter. Science as a Candle in the Dark. It's a feature article. You can go to my website and check it out. This article and this cognitive biases booklet also I'm going to share with all of you. I think could you able to is it all is well? Could you follow till now? Could you able to hear me?
Yeah, Dr. Felix, yes, you are audible.
Perfect. And what time is this program is still what time? 12:30?
Yeah, it is up to 1:10, sir. For you,
1:10. Okay, so
yeah.
as it's already 1:10 means only 10 more minutes. I would like to get some more questions. So the logical fallacy
it would be better that if you can get some questions from the participants.
Exactly. Yeah. So my point, I would like to summarize here that many of the books are banned. For example, The Original Species by Charles Darwin. If you take this book, Original Species, and go to a country called Turkey. Turkey is in Middle East. If you happen to go to the Turkey with a suitcase with the Original Species, Turkey police will arrest you. What is happening here? Because this book contains a paradigm shift of Thomas Kuhn. That exactly is a cognitive bias we were calling about the paradigm shift. If you say something which is contrary to the popular belief, people will not accept it. And you might wonder what is happening in the Original Species. What is actually the big idea of the Original Species? Friends, you have to read it to understand what is actually going ahead with this. Original Species is one of the most banned book. Even in India now, the government has banned the origin to teach it in the school. Many of the CBSE syllabus, the origin has been gone because it's a Darwin's Dangerous Idea. It's a very good book by Daniel C. Dennett. You can check it out. Another very good banned book which I suggest everybody to have a look is Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. It's all about ancient Indian, profound Indian wisdom, but in a more neutral analysis of that. Another very good book which I suggest everybody is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. He's a winner of Nobel Prize in Economics. Daniel Kahneman's this book, Thinking Fast and Slow, is a very good introduction to cognitive biases and logical fallacy too. And this one is another very interesting. This is about the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. This comic I would like to show you. You generated some data and you're simply drawing some part of the data and say that, see, the data says that I'm right. This is what the Texas sharpshooter fallacy is all. You're ignoring all the rest of the data and you're just showing this part of the data is good. See, look at that. I'm right. So this is what and the paradigm shift in pseudoscience. And I would like to summarize with the 10 commandments for the researchers, because all of you are researchers and more than that, all of you are teachers. This is by Bertrand Russell. It's a very famous British philosopher. I just want to read out because this is really, really important. This shows all about the cognitive biases. Do not feel absolutely certain of anything. You could be wrong. Do not think it's worthwhile to proceed by concealing the evidence. For the evidence for sure to come into the light. Or if you conceal the evidence, of course, there is basically omission. That is one of the lie. Very common among the researchers. Never try to discourage thinking, for you are sure to succeed. Never discourage the dissents of opinion. In the class or even in the lab, your students are saying that, sir, it's not right. It's not true. I disagree. Go ahead. Accept it. You don't have to accept it, but you have to entertain the productive discussion about the subject. When you meet with opposition, even if it should be from your husband or your children, endeavor to overcome it by argument, not by authority. Never say that, well, I'm a teacher, you're a student, you cannot criticize me. Or at home, you cannot say, I'm the husband, you're only a wife. Wife cannot criticize husband. So that is what the argument from authority, argumentum ad authority, that all about. For a victory dependent upon authority is unreal and illusory. So authoritarian view is not science at all. Just because a Nobel Prize winner said so and so, it is not an affirmation of the truth or validity. Have no respect for the authority of others, for there are always contrary authorities to be found. Never respect authorities in science, friends, because there are so many other alternative points of view. I always say to my students that never trust my own words. Always listen to other students. Give them a choice, like textbooks. Do not use power to suppress opinion you think is pernicious. For if you do, the opinions will suppress you. This is what exactly happened with the Copernicus. When he said that Earth is not the center, but the sun is the center, the heliocentrism versus geocentrism, the Christian religious stalwarts suppressed his opinions, and even they tried to kill him. That is what Galileo also, right? Galileo Galilei as well. So this is what, but never try to suppress opinion you think is pernicious. Very important. And do not fear to be eccentric in opinion. For every opinion now accepted was once eccentric. So if you have some eccentric opinion, go ahead. It's a thinking out of box. And never be shy of relaying your opinion, because majority of the opinion, even the World Wide Web, had one time it was eccentric. Find more pleasure in intelligent design than in passive agreement. For if you value intelligence as you should, the former implies a deeper agreement than the later. So intelligent dissent means disagreement than simply passive agreement. This is I commonly observe that during my interactions during webinar. Everybody says, sir, fantastic. Sir, what a great talk it is. But I don't like this kind of empty words. You can dissent it. Intelligent design, I appreciate that much better than simply passive agreement for the sake of agreeing. Your boss, be scrupulously truthful, even if the truth is inconvenient. For it is more inconvenient when you try to conceal it. If you conceal the truth, it's more inconvenient because you're going to have, deep feelings. You're going to have internal conflict, right? So this kind of a guilt feeling is not going to do any good thing into your life. And 10th commandment is, do not feel envious of the happiness of those who live in fool's paradise. For only a fool will think that it's happiness. For example, a colleague of you published in crap journals and predatory journals, and he got associate professorship. Don't feel jealous of it. Don't feel envious of that kind of a person, because it's the person who is doing that is a fool, and only fool will believe that the fool's paradise is good. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer's statement is very important. Silence in the face of evil itself is evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. See, not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. That's a very, very famous statement. Plato's statement is also very profound. No one is more hated than the one who speaks the truth. If you speak the truth, you are being hated. Aristotle's statement, there is only one way to avoid criticism. Do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. So is this your path to avoid the criticism? Do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. Because if you speak the truth, you are being hated. And Elie Wiesel's statement summarize it all. Always take sides. Neutrality helps oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. So in the sciences too, the advice is really profound. Just for the sake of neutrality, disregarding the objectivism is not a good way. Argumentum to moderatum is a very bad practice. I have released a video on exactly the same topic. Please go and check out my video, and you can check out my channel. This is the link, or you can, in the YouTube, you can simply search Felix Bast, and that is my channel. I have more than 13,000 subscribers. Please go ahead and check out my channel. There are a lot of interesting things in it. Thank you so much, and it's my privilege to be in here with you today, and I'm open for a bit of discussions today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Felix. And I would request the participants to interact with Dr. Felix if you have any questions that you want to ask, and if you want something to be shared, you can, please. Hello?
Yes.
Are the participants there? Okay,
anyone can ask any questions.
Yeah.
No, I will not take as a blasphemy. You're completely free. You can criticize me. I have no problem.
One of you, I think Rakesh Sri Rama was asking for the PPT and all those things. You don't have to worry, Rakesh and
you're being recorded,
participants.
Right?
Yeah, we are recording this, and we can make the recordings available as a YouTube on the YouTube channel. We'll do that.
Very good.
Yeah, and
sure.
Yes. That's wonderful that some of you are responding. Yeah, Dayanand, Mr. Dayanand.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. Felix, sir.
Yes.
You had given 10 commandments that include don'ts. Are there any commandments for do's, sir, for that? Because it is completely going towards the negative side. What we don't do.
Yeah, look, this one, yeah, I have covered that in
some laws are there, Faraday's laws are there. There was discovered without any proof in the beginning, that is just by cognitive ideas and along with some evidences. But later on they are proved, sir.
Yes.
What I mean that the human brain is magic, that certain phrase is there. Sometimes an idea may struck into the human mind, and it should be written on the paper and published. And later on, there may be evidences may be there.
Okay, now let me tell you. So basically, both of you, second part, let me answer about the Faraday's thing, or about the Newton's law. Newton, when he actually formulated the laws of motion, during those days, of course, it was not a space age. From 1960s onwards, when the space age started. So Newton, through his complex calculations, he said that when you go to space, you will not feel any gravitational pull. and it's going to be pitch dark in space. And how did he say that? All those things without even going to the space. Do you think that Newton is a mystical and it's basically a supernatural? It's not. So it's again, there is a very common misconception that you should see it to believe it. In sciences, there is you don't really have to see it to believe it. There is a very famous concept called Russell's teapot. So if you are making a big tall claim, it's up to you to disbelieve it. The famous British philosopher, the Bertrand Russell, he once said that there is a long teapot which is revolving the sun between Earth and Mars in the vast expanses of space. There is a teapot. So he made a claim. Now, for you to disprove it, it's not possible to disprove that claim. How do you disprove it? Even with a supermassive telescope, you cannot completely scan the entire expanses of the space. So that way, to seeing is believing is a wrong misconception. And more than that, Newton's point is the same thing. Example, there is no mysticism at all. The science work through the objectivity. The mysticism has zero point in science. Now, coming to your first point about the positivity, that is also Voltaire. Please read Candide by Voltaire. So it's extreme positivism is wrong. And nowadays, if you turn into the channel, there are actually some TV channels, some TV programs that says only positive news. They will not say anything negative news. It will say only positive news because positivity is much better. And even there are actually books, crap books, I would say. Rhonda Pride is one author. She has written one book called I don't remember Rhonda Pride's book. It is a very famous book, I think Lemons, or I forgot the name of the book. The thing is that if you imagine something, then the thing will come to be true. For example, if you imagine always earning lots of money. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a visitor. 1 second.
Yeah, any more questions? One of the important aspects that we have to understand when we are talking about research, science research, and all those things is like we need to have a kind of pragmatic approach towards what we are doing. And while going towards going and listening to what Dr. Felix has shared with us, we come to know that most of the time we are standing on the wrong bank and looking at the other side of the bank and thinking, as he was saying, that ignore we become so engrossed in our own paradise that we forget that we are in fact so prejudiced against the whole thing. So yeah, a kind of open approach towards science, open approach towards whatever we are doing, all those things are very, very important. And I'm indeed very kind of happy and pleased to have Dr. Felix with us today. And yeah, and I felt that the a kind of different perspective was needed for many of us who are in teaching profession. Those of us, unfortunately, many of us kind of get what you say, pegged into the boxes, thinking that oh, now that we have got some kind of position, whatever we are saying is correct and all such kind of things. You have to remember, no, my dear ladies and gentlemen, it is not the case. We once we think that we know everything, that's the day we have fallen down to the depths from where we cannot come up. So
exactly, I totally agree with your point. Yes.
Yeah, as a teacher, as persons who are involved in academics, we need to kind of be a lifelong learner. Only then we would be able to do justice to the fields that with which we are associated, as well as the very purpose of we being human beings. That is what I would like to say. So That was a wonderful perspective that Dr. Felix has brought in when we are talking about, research process, research design, and all those things, and that cognitive biases that he was talking about was very, very important aspect. And when I was discussing it on my dinner table yesterday, my son was so happy that he said that at least in India, there are people who talk about cognitive biases, because it is something that has been very much restricted to the psychology classes. And in the undergraduate course of psychology in UK, US, this particular aspects, these aspects of biases, cognitive biases, are taught. And when he said that, I see it is good, change that we have experts that talk about these things, and it is a good change that at least Osmania University, when it is planning to deliver such programs, is encouraging such talks. So there was a pat on my back from my son. So I'm thankful to Dr. Felix for this very much, and I would always remember that, if at all I am coordinating any of the programs in future, Dr. Felix would be one of the important component of that thing. Thank you very much. We would end the session.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would like to add a few points here,
yeah,
because I'm
please do.
looking at the
Please go ahead.
comment section. Sheshaya Kurivi said that the name of the book is Secret. Exactly, the Secret, Rhonda Pride Secret. And the Secret book is one of the trap book which I never liked that book. It's all about, like, if you think rich, you will become rich. You just think that, okay, I'm going to publish a great paper in Nature or Science. Wow, suddenly Nature and paper, science paper will come. That is complete nonsense. It doesn't work that way. You have to work towards target. Pragmatism is only approach. That is what the empirical approach for the life. And yeah, and the last, I couldn't actually complete my reply to that question about the positivity. The positivity bias is, I've already introduced. It's actually a cognitive bias, a positivity bias. Bertrand Russell's 10 commandments are negative. What not to do. That's more important, actually. What not to do rather than what to do. Everybody is preaching you what to do, what to do. But we have to be very careful what not to do. You can do anything in your life except few things. Many of the advancement in our own life can be brought by what not to do. For example, if you drink some Scotch whiskey once in a while, and if you smoke a while, and then whatever you do, you can make a tremendous impact on your life by stop drinking altogether, or removing the tobacco altogether, rather than buying an expensive, life insurance or medical policy, or expensive, immune booster drugs to have it. Just take precautions. Just follow the common sense. Voltaire's famous statement is that common sense is not so common. That is a reality. We have to actually take up the common sense. Thousands of studies are there in this world that alcohol is a drug and drinking alcohol is bad for your health. And still we people drink it because it's like social conformity, right? If you don't drink, people will think, okay, he's not really a social animal. The alcohol is like a social lubricant. I'm a teetotaler. I don't drink at all. I don't smoke cigarette. I don't smoke drink. I don't smoke or drink. So see, negativity, removing the negativity is more important. That is called via negativa approach in philosophy. Many progresses you can bring to your own life by removing the negative. If you don't do exercise, that itself is a negativity. Do run and cycle, bring some positive changes to your life by removing the negativity. If you drink, if you eat a lot of sugary stuff, remove that negativity from your life. So that is why the negative approach is extremely important. That is why what not to do is more important than what to do. And don't always think that you're like a child. You need a big brother to advise you every point of your life. No, you're an adult. As a researcher, you can take independent decisions. So do whatever you like, but there are certain things which you should not do. Don't do that. And also, again, this is just a personal point of view of Bertrand Russell, which I like. You might not like. You might disagree. And I'm welcome for don't be passively agreeing for just for the sake of agreeing. Here is assistant professor, associate professor Felix is saying so and so, and I'm also part of the FDP program. So I should not say negative comments. That is wrong. That passive agreement is the root cause of most of the problems that is being faced here. And thanks for the comments, Dr. Srinivasulu. I'm really happy to be here with you all. And in case you still have any doubt or comments, or suggestions, you are free to email me. Please contact me.
Thank you very much once again, Dr. Felix. Now it's the time to propose a formal vote of thanks to you, and I request Dr. Annie to do the honors.
Hello, sir.
So, am I audible, sir?
Yeah. Yes, madam. You can put the mic a little closer to your mouth, madam.
Okay, sir. Now, sir, is it okay?
Yes, it is. It is okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Respected Director, HRDC, OU, Professor Nagesh, sir, Course Coordinator, Srinivas, sir, teaching fraternity of government degree colleges and other colleges who are attending this FIT. Very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of everyone present here, I would like to thank our speaker and I should say one of the young and eminent botanist of our country, Dr. Felix Bast, for his very thought-provoking talk on cognitive biases in scientific research. I should truly say that this rarely we listen to such topics in platform like this. And sir, we thoroughly enjoyed your talk that highlighted about various misconceptions in scientific research. As scientists and science teachers, how we have to be cautious and extra watchful about various prevailing biases, fallacies, misconceptions, and other things, pseudosciences, and have an open approach and consider the truth. And what I feel is it should not be kept to ourselves, but we should create awareness as teachers. We should create awareness in our students about all these fallacies and misconceptions. Sir, as I was listening to this, I just visited your YouTube channel, sir. It's very that channel is full of interesting topics and right from it's like a topic across the disciplines like curiosity, eyesight therapy, zero waste, brewing a perfect coffee or tea with full of nutrients, and more interestingly your expedition to Antarctica. Truly, it's an honor to us to listen to such a versatile, multi-talented person of science and knowledge. Thank you very much, sir. And thank our HRDC director and the course coordinator for arranging a wonderful lecture like this. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Annie, and thank you very much, Dr. Felix.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Sure.
Yep. I was getting one. Yep. I don't know.
Hello?
Yeah, madam,
Hello,
please.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir,
please.
I'm Dr. T. Arvinda, Assistant Professor of Botany, sir. I wish to thank him, sir. Shall I, sir?
Yes, madam. It has been already done, but you can also thank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Felix,
yeah,
sir.
please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Felix, sir. On behalf of all the participants and HRDC, sir, I take this opportunity to thank you for your extraordinary and extremely good presentation, sir. Sir, you have shared your experiences, the facts which are existing in the society with real examples, and especially about decision making and probability biases, sir. Sir, we are really lucky enough to listen to you through this online program, sir. Thanks a lot to HRD officials and especially Dr. Srinivasulu, sir, for this great presentation, sir. Thank you one and all, sir.
Thank you so much, Madam Aravinda. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you once again, all of you.